They were never meant for showroom floors or glossy brochures, built behind locked factory doors, tested in the dead of night, and hidden from public eyes. From government experiments to wild prototypes and hush-hush projects canceled before launch, these machines almost vanished without a trace. Here are 12 of the most secret cars you won't believe actually exist. The 1971 Monteverde Palm Beach stands today not just as a prototype, but almost as a ghost of an entire idea. The glamorous, grand touring convertible Switzerland might have offered the world, yet never truly did. Conceived by Peter Monteverde, a man known equally for his unyielding ambition and his stubborn independence, the Palm Beach was meant to complement Monteverde's existing range of powerful but understated coupes, giving wealthy clients the option to cruise the Côte d'Azur or the boulevards of St. Moritz with the wind in their hair and the burble of a Chrysler V8 underfoot. At first glance, the Palm Beach feels instantly familiar to anyone who knows the Monteverde high-speed 375 series, that same blend of European poise and American muscle, wrapped in a silhouette that seemed to whisper rather than shout. But look closer and you see how the design gently pushed the brand forward. Its nose was sharper, the flanks subtly more sculpted, and the rear fenders flared just enough to give the car a quietly muscular stance. The chrome trim was tasteful, not extravagant, and the convertible profile promised sun-drenched afternoons spent in measured, dignified speed rather than reckless abandon. Inside, the Palm Beach carried on Monteverde's almost obsessive devotion to craftsmanship. The polished wooden dashboard felt closer to that of an expensive motor launch than a sports car, while deep leather seats and minimalist instrumentation spoke of old-world restraint rather than Italian flamboyance. The cabin was intimate yet airy, designed to be enjoyed slowly, thoughtfully, more an elegant salon on wheels than a cockpit built for corner carving. You could almost picture it parked outside a lakeside hotel on Lake Geneva, its owner wearing driving gloves and sunglasses, more concerned with looking impeccable than shaving tenths off a lap time. Underneath the sculpted bodywork, Monteverde kept faith with what had worked so well before, a big Chrysler V8, known for its robustness, easy torque, and transcontinental cruising ability. It was a power plant chosen not only for performance, but also for reliability and serviceability. Important considerations for a small builder catering to discreetly wealthy buyers who wanted exclusivity without the headaches of a temperamental exotic. With an estimated top speed comfortably above 130 miles an hour and effortless acceleration, the Palm Beach would have matched its European contemporaries, even if it might never have challenged them on the racetrack. Yet, despite its promise, the Palm Beach was born into a market that hardly existed. The early 70s were a time of shifting tastes and looming crises. The oil shock was on the horizon, and even traditional sports car buyers were starting to look for practicality or prestige badges rather than niche, low-volume rarities. Monteverde's resources were stretched thin. The company was still a boutique operation, hand-building cars rather than mass-producing them, and the economics of developing an open-top GT simply didn't add up. After its single appearance at the 1971 Geneva Motor Show, the Palm Beach quietly vanished from public view. No press drives, no production announcement, no follow-up prototypes. Just a dignified retreat into Monteverde's private collection. In the decades since, the Palm Beach has become almost mythical, a car that seemed ready to challenge the likes of the Maserati Ghibli Spider or Ferrari Daytona Spider, but never even got the chance. Its very existence feels improbable, as if Peter Monteverde had built it simply to prove he could, before locking it away as a reminder of roads not taken. Today, that sole surviving prototype is more than a car. It's a time capsule of a moment when the boundaries between Swiss precision, Italian design flair, and American brute force briefly blurred into something quietly remarkable. It's a symbol of a brand that dared to dream beyond its means and nearly pulled it off, and of a man whose ambitions were sometimes larger than the market he served. To see the Palm Beach today is to glimpse an alternate history, a vision of Swiss grand touring that could have been, but never was. It remains frozen in time, the kind of car that seems to belong in the background of a faded magazine photo or a lost scene from a 1970s Riviera holiday. A sculpted embodiment of grace, power, and exquisite restraint, built for a clientele who valued being seen but never shouting. And perhaps that quiet, unrealized ambition makes it all the more fascinating. A near-perfect dream, left unfinished not through failure, but through the simple reality that the world had moved on before it even had a chance to begin. The 1966 Alvis TF21 wasn't the sort of car that turned heads at traffic lights or dominated glossy magazine covers. Instead, it represented something more subtle and dignified. The final chapter in the long, graceful story of a storied British marque whose history stretched back to the Roaring '20s. By the time the TF21 appeared, Alvis had already spent decades building a reputation for refined engineering, understated luxury, and a quiet sort of exclusivity that appealed to barristers, diplomats, and those who preferred polished walnut dashboards over the brashness of an E-Type's bonnet scoop. At first glance, the TF21 looked very much like its predecessor, the TD21. Restrained, gently curved lines, a large chrome grille, and that unmistakable air of a car built for the owner who wore driving gloves not for show, but because they actually drove, perhaps from London to the south of France, in a single unhurried day. Under the long bonnet lay a 3-liter straight-six engine producing around 150 horsepower, modest by the standards of Italian exotics, but paired with the car's smooth manners and effortless torque, it provided genuine grand touring capability. This was a car that cruised rather than sprinted, one built for motorways, country lanes, and quiet confidence rather than public display. Inside, the TF21 was a testament to British craftsmanship of a sort that was already fading from the mainstream by the mid-60s. Deep leather seats, hand-finished wood trim, and thoughtful instrumentation created an atmosphere that was less sports car and more gentleman's club on wheels. Everything felt solid, built not to impress your neighbors, but to please you every time you turned the ignition key. It was a car designed by engineers and craftspeople, not by marketers chasing the latest trend. And yet, those very qualities, the restraint, the classic silhouette, the quiet dignity, were what doomed the TF21 commercially. The world of the mid-1960s was speeding up. Jaguar's XJ6 offered modern styling and sophistication at a lower price. Aston Martin's DB6 was far sportier, and the Mercedes-Benz SL had a cosmopolitan sheen that felt very much of its moment. Against these rivals, the TF21's design, rooted in the late 1950s, seemed almost like a relic of another age, elegant but out of step with the world now obsessed with jet-age styling cues and raw performance figures. Alvis, always a small volume producer, simply couldn't compete. Its customers, loyal as they were aging. Younger buyers were drawn to faster, sharper shapes, cars that made a statement rather than quietly suggesting one. In total, fewer than 100 TF21s were built, a tiny number even by hand-built standards. And then, in 1967, Alvis closed the chapter on its passenger car production forever, pivoting instead to armored vehicles and military contracts, where its engineering expertise would continue, but the romance of grand touring would not. Today, the Alvis TF21 stands not only as the company's final road car, but also as a poignant symbol of an era slipping away. It was the last echo of that uniquely British approach to motoring, where refinement trumped raw speed, where an elegant dinner jacket felt more appropriate than a racing suit, and where a car's beauty was measured by the warmth it gave you on a quiet Sunday drive
rather than by the volume of cheers it might provoke from a crowd. Those who know them, and especially those fortunate enough to own one, describe the TF21 not in terms of 0 to 60 times, but in the way the light catches its curves on an early morning drive, or the way the engine hums contentedly at a steady motorway pace. In an age obsessed with novelty, the TF21 feels timeless, a hand-built farewell from a company that, until its very last day in car production, believed that grace, craftsmanship, and quiet distinction mattered more than fashion. And perhaps that, more than anything, is why a few that survive today are cherished not just as rare classics, but as moving reminders of what it once meant to travel in style, rather than merely to arrive.
The 1968 Intermeccanica Italia Spider occupies that wonderfully obscure corner of automotive history, where passion, ambition, and a touch of stubborn romanticism all converged. A car that was as much an idea as it was a machine. Born from a time when the lines between Italian craftsmanship and American horsepower blurred into something quite special. It started as a vision shared by Canadian-born Frank Reisner, founder of Carrozzeria Intermeccanica, who dreamed of building a sports car that blended the soul of an Italian exotic with the reliability and brute force of a Detroit V8. And from that dream came the Italia Spider. Low-slung, impossibly curvaceous, and draped in hand-shaped steel panels so sculptural that could have come from an atelier rather than an assembly line. The Italia Spider's design, credited to the brilliant Franco Scaglione, the same visionary who penned the outrageous Alfa Romeo Bat concept cars, was the perfect expression of late 1960s Italian automotive style. A long, sculpted hood ended in a shark-like nose. Muscular rear haunches hinted at power without a shred of chrome gaudiness. From every angle, it looked like something that had leapt straight from an auto show stand into the real world. Its proportions were pure sports car fantasy, impossibly low to the ground with that elegantly tapered tail that seemed almost too pretty to risk on an open road. Beneath the artistry, however, was the brute practicality that made it both thrilling and somewhat attainable compared to its Maranello and Modena rivals. The Italia Spider was powered by Ford's 351 cubic-inch Windsor V8, an engine that roared to life with a rumble entirely unlike the high-revving Italian 12s of the era. It wasn't delicate, it was raw, torquey, and reassuringly simple to maintain. Combined with a 4-speed manual and a lightweight chassis, the Italia could genuinely deliver Ferrari-challenging performance. 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds, a top speed near 150 miles per hour, without the mechanical fragility or sky-high servicing bills that came with an Italian thoroughbred. Driving one was a unique experience, according to those lucky enough to have done it. The cabin felt unmistakably Italian. Deeply bolstered seats wrapped in soft leather, classic Vevlia gauges, and the smell of hand-stitched trim that mixed with hot engine oil. But press the throttle and the car lunged forward on a tidal wave of V8 torque, American brawn answering Italian grace in an unmistakable duet. It was equal parts sophisticated GT and muscle car, designed to eat up miles of autostrada or Pacific Coast Highway with equal ease. Yet for all its charms, the Italia Spider remained a rarity almost from birth. Built in painfully small batches by craftsmen rather than mass production lines, each car took time, patience, and no small amount of money. Intermeccanica's distribution network was limited. The brand was known only to enthusiasts who read about it in the back pages of Car and Driver or Road and Track. And as the 1970s dawned, stricter U.S. emissions and safety regulations, along with economic headwinds, conspired to strangle the company's production ambitions. By the time the final car left the Turin workshop, only about 400 Italias had been built in total, both Spiders and hardtops combined. Today, the Italia Spider is the kind of car that provokes double takes even from hardened collectors. A familiar shape,
wrapped around unfamiliar details. Its very anonymity has become part of its mystique. Spotting one at a classic car meet is like glimpsing an animal thought extinct. Seasoned spotters walk over, eyes narrowing, trying to recall the marked badge on the hand-formed grille. And the conversation often starts with the same question: what on earth is it? And by the end, there's usually a respectful smile, the kind reserved for cars that dared to be different. What makes the Intermeccanica Italia Spider so special isn't just the rarity, the beauty, or the mix of cultures under its skin. It's the very fact that it exists at all. It was the product of an era when a small company, driven by a stubborn vision and a love for automobiles, could really challenge the giants, if only briefly. It remains a rolling sculpture that whispers of a time when it was possible to build your own dream by hand and sell it to a few equally romantic souls who understood exactly what made it great. And that, more than its raw numbers or even its design pedigree, is why the Italia Spider still casts a spell over those who know its story.
The 1967 Lamborghini 400 GT Monza is the kind of car that feels more like whispered rumor than documented fact, an automotive ghost that drifted silently through decades, known only to the most obsessive marque historians and a few lucky collectors. Even within Lamborghini's famously colorful back catalog of prototypes, coach-built one-offs, and wild design studies, the Monza stands apart for just how quietly it was born and how completely it vanished into obscurity for so long. Built by the small but talented Carrozzeria Neri and Bonaccini, better known for their work with Ferrari and Maserati, the Monza started life as a standard 400 GT 2+2 chassis, Lamborghini's refined grand tourer of the era. But what emerged from the workshop was something distinctly unlike any Lamborghini before or since: a sleek, low, aluminum-bodied coupe with a restrained, almost formal silhouette. Gone were the sharp creases, scoops, and air-gulping aggression that would soon define Sant'Agata's supercars. Instead, the Monza wore soft curves and understated detailing that made it look more like an elegant Italian GT in the tradition of Touring or Pininfarina. The story goes that the car was commissioned by a wealthy Spanish client who wanted something unique, a machine blending the mechanical drama of Lamborghini's 4.0-liter V12 with a more reserved, almost aristocratic exterior. The build itself reflected Neri and Bonaccini's craftsman-like approach: hand-formed aluminum panels, subtly integrated bumpers, delicate trim, all aimed at making the Monza feel more refined than raging. Yet just as the car neared completion, the client abruptly backed out, possibly due to rising costs, import taxes, or a simple change of heart. Faced with a completed but now unsold one-off, Lamborghini quietly tucked the Monza away. Unlike many prototypes that were shown off at salons or loaned to motoring journalists for testing, this car never had its grand debut. It was neither promoted nor displayed, and without an official unveiling, it slipped into a kind of half-life, too significant to scrap but too awkward to market. It was, for all intents, Lamborghini's forgotten child. For decades, the Monza existed only as a curious footnote in the brand's chaotic early history. Most Lamborghini enthusiasts had never heard of it, and even well-known books on the marque barely mentioned its existence. It lived quietly in storage, first in Italy, then reportedly passing through the hands of a few discreet collectors who recognized its rarity but kept it out of the spotlight. Its anonymity was so complete that when it resurfaced in the late 1990s, many seasoned Lamborghini fans saw photographs and asked, "Is that even real?" Mechanically, the Monza was still a true Lamborghini. Under the subtly domed hood lay the same glorious Bizzarini-designed 4.0-liter V12, good for around 320 horsepower, enough to push the sleek coupe past 150 miles per hour.
The interior blended typical Lamborghini switchgear with unique upholstery and trim choices befitting its bespoke mission. It wasn't wild like a Miura or brutally angular like the Espada that soon followed. Instead, it was graceful, balanced, and quietly menacing, like a grand tourer built for someone who wanted to travel at high speed without shouting about it. The car's rediscovery only added to its allure. By the time it reappeared at a few concourse events in the early 2000s, the Monza had become an artifact from a different Lamborghini, a brand that at the time of its creation was still experimenting, not yet locked into its identity as the world's most theatrical supercar maker. Seeing it next to a Miura or Countach makes the contrast all the more fascinating. Here was a Lamborghini that didn't breathe fire, but instead exhaled a quiet, refined confidence. Today, the 400 GT Monza remains a true unicorn, a car built for a single person who never claimed it, saved by historical accident, and then hidden for decades. It reminds us that even Lamborghini's flamboyant history had moments of unexpected subtlety, and that sometimes the cars the world never got to see are the ones that best capture our imagination. It is, quite simply, one of the rarest and most quietly beautiful chapters in the Lamborghini story, known by heart only to those who live and breathe the forgotten corners of automotive history.
The 1974 Jensen GT is one of those lost chapters in automotive history that, when you really dig into it, feels almost tragic in its earnest ambition. Imagine a small, proud British carmaker known for thunderous, Chrysler-powered grand tours like the Interceptor, suddenly trying to reinvent itself in the darkest days of the oil crisis. The Jensen GT wasn't just another model. It was a desperate, hopeful attempt to stay alive, to pivot from brute force to nimble charm, and to prove that a small mark from West Bromwich could still create something stylish, practical, and thoroughly modern. And in its short, flickering existence, it did all of that. Almost. It all began with the Jensen Healey, the two-seater roadster launched in 1972 that was supposed to fill the gap left by aging icons like the Austin Healey 3000. Under the bonnet sat the then-new Lotus 907 twin-cam engine, a rev-happy, lightweight marvel that sounded wonderful, but sometimes behaved like a diva. The Jensen Healey had its fans, but it also earned a reputation for electrical gremlins, oil leaks, and the kind of hand-built quirkiness that charmed enthusiasts and terrified accountants. Sales weren't disastrous, but they weren't enough to keep Jensen financially secure. By 1974, the mood at Jensen had shifted from optimism to sheer survival. Management hoped that broadening the appeal of the Jensen Healey could bring in new buyers, especially those who loved the roadster but wanted a touch more practicality and elegance. Thus, the GT was born, essentially a fixed-head coupe version of the Healey, but it became something stranger and arguably more beautiful, a sleek, compact 2+2 shooting brake. Its angular lines were drawn with an eye toward Italian style, with a long roof tapering gently to a sloping rear hatch. The profile was balanced and understated, exuding a quiet, sophisticated charm that never shouted for attention. Inside, the Jensen GT offered a blend of hand-stitched leather, wood veneer, and minimalist switches typical of low-volume British GT cars of the era. The rear seats were mostly symbolic, more suitable for weekend bags than a folded jacket, but the hatchback layout added genuine practicality that many small sports cars lacked. The Lotus engine provided about 140 horsepower, modest by muscle car standards, but the GT was light enough to feel eager and responsive. Period testers praised its nimble handling and more refined ride compared to its roadster sibling. It wasn't a brawler. It was a car meant for fast touring on winding roads where its balance and character shone through. Yet the GT's virtues were overshadowed by brutal realities. The oil crisis had made performance cars look indulgent. Jensen's tiny size and limited budget meant quality control was always a battle, where still, the very thing that made the GT appealing, the Lotus engine,
proved troublesome when exposed to real-world use, with overheating and oil seal failures that frustrated owners and drained Jensen's already thin warranty reserves. For a small company building cars almost by hand, these issues weren't just embarrassing, they were financially ruinous. Production began cautiously in September 1975, but the money simply wasn't there to ramp up. In less than a year, Jensen entered receivership and built its last GT in May 1976. Just 511 were completed, a blink of an eye in automotive terms. They trickled out to buyers who often didn't even realize they were purchasing the last breath of a dying marque. Today, surviving Jensen ETs are almost spectral presences at classic shows. Rare, quietly beautiful, and usually known only to the most devoted car enthusiasts. Some owners describe them with fond exasperation, as one once put it, like an MBG that got dressed up for the opera but kept its holy socks. Others adore the car's subtle blend of British craftsmanship and Italian-inspired design, and forgive the flaws as part of the car's eccentric soul. You can still see the potential Jensen engineers believed in: a light, practical Grand Touring with real pedigree and undeniable style. But the GT's deeper story is about what could have been. It hints at an alternate future where Jensen survived, matured, and kept building small, elegant sports cars that didn't rely on raw V8 power. It shows a company trying to pivot from swaggering muscle to sophisticated European taste, and almost succeeding. So the 1974 Jensen GT remains a rolling contradiction: modest power but big character, British quirk wrapped in Italian elegance, and a desperate final hope that turned into an automotive footnote. And maybe that's why it's so fascinating. Not because it was the best or fastest of its era, but because it tried so hard to be something new, only to be stopped by forces far bigger than its graceful shape or rev-happy engine. In its rare survivors, the Jensen GT carries that melancholy charisma, a beautiful echo from the twilight of Britain's hand-built GT age. It's the car you see parked quietly at the edge of a concourse lawn, ignored by crowds chasing Ferraris and Astons, but when you look closer, you realize you're staring at the last heartbeat of a dying marque's grand ambition. And that makes it unforgettable.
The 1965 Apollo GT 5000 is one of those fascinating, half-forgotten gems of the 1960s that feels almost like it slipped through a crack in automotive history. A car that, if it had launched just a few years later, or with a little more cash behind it, might have rewritten what we think of as the classic American Italian GT. Born out of equal parts Californian optimism and Italian artistry, the Apollo GT 5000 is a car that looked every bit ready to stand alongside Ferraris and Maseratis of the day, yet ended up as a ghost known only to marque obsessives and the occasional stunned concourse spectator. Picture the setting: early 1960s California, an era crackling with aerospace ambition, surf culture, and a growing fascination with European style. A small team led by Milt Brown dreamed of building a true gentleman's Grand Tour, something that combined the easy, thunderous torque of an American V8 with the delicate, hand-wrought curves only Italian carrozzeria could deliver. They called it Apollo, a name that perfectly captured the era's jet-age optimism, hinting at power, elegance, and futuristic speed. The design was unmistakably European. Carrozzeria Intermeccanica, under the gifted Franco Scaglione, shaped the Apollo's body with classic, long hood, short deck proportions, subtle curves, and restrained chrome. It looked as though it belonged on the Autostrada next to a Maserati 3500 GT, yet under the skin it was more rugged and refreshingly simple. The chassis was Brown's own design, straightforward and stout, while power came from Buick V8s that were light, powerful, and easier to service than any exotic Italian twin-cam. Early Apollos typically carried the smaller 3.5-liter and 4.9-liter 300 cubic inch Buick V8s,
but the rarest and most powerful was the Apollo GT 5000. This variant boasted the full 5-liter version of the Buick V8, with output around 250 horsepower, more than enough to propel the car's relatively light body past 140 miles per hour. It might not sound like much today, but in the mid-1960s, that put it firmly among the quicker GTs you could buy. And unlike many European rivals, the Apollo delivered this speed with near-effortless low-end torque, making it an ideal transcontinental cruiser. Inside, the Apollo GT 5000 blended Italian style with American practicality. Think hand-finished wood dash, deep-set gauges in chrome bezels, and leather seats stitched in small batches by Italian craftsmen. Every car was built in painfully low volume, often tailored to the customer's preferences, which means each Apollo today is slightly different, a unique snapshot of its first owner's taste. Yet for all its promise, the Apollo story turned bittersweet almost immediately. Building a low-volume, handmade GT on 2 continents was ruinously expensive. Cars had to be shipped as painted and trimmed shells from Turin to California, then mated to their running gear and finished by hand. Brown and his partners struggled to secure steady investment. Delays, cash flow problems, and the logistics of coordinating a transatlantic production line meant the price kept rising, pushing the Apollo into direct competition with established names like Jaguar and Maserati, brands with dealer networks and reputation that a handful of dreamers from California simply couldn't match. By 1965, money ran out. Fewer than 90 Apollos of all types were built in total, with the GT 5000 representing the smallest, most elusive slice of that production. Some later shells were finished under new names like Vetta Ventura, but the spirit of the original Apollo faded quietly away, leaving just enough survivors to haunt classic car shows and private garages. Today, the Apollo GT 5000 is a rolling what if, a gorgeous Grand Tour that proved decades ahead of its time. It anticipated the modern template later perfected by De Tomaso Pantera, Iso Grifo, and even cars like the Shelby Cobra Daytona, American muscle under Italian curves. Owners often say driving an Apollo feels like the best of both worlds, European poise and American rumble, delivered in a shape so elegant it could have worn a Ferrari badge without raising an eyebrow. And maybe that's why the few that remain inspire such obsession among collectors. They're not just beautiful, fast, or rare. They're the embodiment of a uniquely California dream, hand-built with old-world craft and new-world audacity. Each Apollo GT 5000 is a survivor of ambition that burned too bright and too briefly. And when you see one in the wild today, you're not just seeing a car, you're seeing a dream on wheels that almost made it. The 1958 Dual-Ghia L6.4 convertible stands as one of the most fascinating and elusive automotive masterpieces of the post-war era, a rare and captivating blend of American power and Italian design finesse, wrapped in a cloak of Hollywood mystique and elite exclusivity. This car is not merely a machine, it is a story frozen in time, a symbol of an era when craftsmanship, performance, and star-studded glamour collided to create vehicles that were as much art as they were transport. Unlike mass-produced automobiles flooding the market, the Dual-Ghia convertible emerged from a collaboration between the modest American company Dual Motors and the revered Italian design atelier Ghia, resulting in something extraordinary that transcended mere utility or speed. The genesis of the Dual-Ghia L6.4 convertible lies in the fusion of two worlds, American muscle and Italian elegance. On the mechanical side, the heart of the car was Chrysler's formidable 383 cubic inch V8, an engine known for its robust torque and smooth power delivery. This V8 was carefully chosen not just for its performance, but for the way it complemented the refined driving experience that the car promised. The engine produced a deep, resonant growl that spoke to raw American strength, yet it was tamed enough to provide effortless cruising, a balance of brawn and grace.
Underneath the hood was the kind of engineering that made it equally at home cruising down the Pacific Coast Highway or gliding through the exclusive streets of Beverly Hills. Yet, what truly set the Dual-Ghia apart was its breathtaking bodywork, sculpted by Ghia's master craftsmen in Italy. Its hand-built aluminum panels showcased a sensibility far beyond what typical American cars of the day could claim. Every curve, fin, and detail was deliberate, blending aerodynamic form with artistic expression. Its sleek, low-slung profile was accentuated by delicate chrome trim and a flowing silhouette that suggested motion even while standing still. The convertible soft top folded neatly away, allowing the car to transform from a sleek coupe into an open-air chariot fit for the Hollywood elite. The design was timeless, capturing the optimism and elegance of the late 1950s, when cars were not just transportation, but an extension of personal style and status. But the Dual-Ghia's mystique extends far beyond its physical attributes. Only about 26 convertibles were ever produced, a number so small that it borders on exclusivity rarely seen in the automotive world. This rarity was no accident. It was part of the car's allure, crafted for an elite clientele who demanded something unique, something that no other automobile could offer. Its price reflected this exclusivity, selling for amounts comparable to Rolls-Royce models. The Dual-Ghia was squarely aimed at the upper echelons of society, celebrities, wealthy industrialists, and even Richard Nixon, whose ownership hinted at the vehicle's appeal to figures beyond Hollywood's spotlight. Each owner added to the car's legend, transforming it from a mere automobile into a cultural icon. Driving the Dual-Ghia was said to be an experience unlike any other. The combination of its powerful yet refined V8, supple suspension, and featherweight aluminum body gave it an uncanny agility and presence on the road. Behind the wheel, you felt connected not only to the mechanical symphony of engine and chassis, but to a bygone era of elegance and leisure. The soft roar of the engine, the wind in your hair, and the admiring glances from onlookers created a sensory experience reminiscent of classic films, where the hero steps into his sleek convertible and drives off into the golden sunset. It was a car made for moments of escape and indulgence, a vessel of dreams as much as metal and fuel. Yet, despite all its virtues, the Dual-Ghia was also a fragile dream. The company behind it was small and lacked the resources to mass-produce or properly market the car on a grand scale. It remained a niche product for a niche market, and the tides of the automobile industry eventually swept it into near oblivion. The passage of time and the scarcity of surviving models have turned the Dual-Ghia into a rare collectible, a whisper of mid-century glamour that only the most devoted collectors and historians fully appreciate. Its value today is not merely monetary, but cultural, a testament to a unique moment when American horsepower met Italian artistry under the shimmering glow of the Hollywood spotlight. It remains a masterpiece of a vanished era, destined forever to captivate those who seek the extraordinary in a world of the ordinary.
The 1966 OSI 20M TS Coupe is a captivating story of automotive collaboration that few enthusiasts today fully appreciate. Yet it holds a special place in the annals of car design as a remarkable fusion of German engineering discipline and Italian stylistic passion. OSI, Officine Stampaggi Industriali, was a small, ambitious Italian coach-building company known for pushing boundaries in form and function, and its partnership with Ford's European division produced this uniquely beautiful and rare Grand Touring coupe that seemed to exist outside the typical automotive norms of its time. At first glance, the OSI 20M TS Coupe catches your eye with its unmistakable Italian elegance. Crafted under the visionary design guidance of Giorgetto Giugiaro, who was still at the dawn of his career, this car's sleek and sharply defined lines presented a sporty, sophisticated silhouette that bore little resemblance to its more pedestrian Ford Taunus 20M sedan donor. The OSI transformed the Taunus's boxy, practical form into something of a rolling sculpture. Its low-slung stance, gently tapered roofline, and finely sculpted body panels came together to create a profile that was both aggressive and graceful.
evoking the aura of high-end Italian sports cars like Maserati or Alfa Romeo. The coupe's design was punctuated by subtle details: flush-mounted door handles, refined chrome accents around the windows, and a front grille that hinted at menace without excess, perfectly balancing flair with tasteful restraint. Under this beautiful exterior, the OSI 20M TS remained true to its Ford mechanical roots, featuring a 2.0-liter V6 engine that, while not a powerhouse, delivered smooth, reliable performance suited to grand touring. The car's chassis and suspension were similarly based on Ford's engineering, offering a comfortable yet engaging driving experience that made the coupe more than just a pretty face. Although it wasn't designed to be a blisteringly fast sports car, its combination of lightweight bodywork and adequate power allowed it to hold its own on winding roads and long cruises, appealing to drivers who sought style without sacrificing substance. What makes the OSI 20M TS especially compelling is its rarity and the story behind its production. OSI was a small company, and the production run for this model was limited to roughly 2,200 cars between 1966 and 1968. Compared to the millions of cars rolling off assembly lines elsewhere, this tiny number made the OSI 20M TS an instant collectible for insiders and a rare sight even in Europe, where it was officially sold. Today, fewer than 200 remain, many tucked away in private collections or carefully preserved by passionate enthusiasts who understand the car's unique heritage and the cross-cultural story it embodies. The OSI 20M TS Coupe is a fascinating snapshot of a moment in the mid-1960s when automotive borders blurred and the urge to innovate met the desire for beauty. It represents an era when coach builders like OSI could take a conventional platform and turn it into an object of art, blending the best of two continents, German precision and Italian passion, into a single, extraordinary package. This car wasn't just transportation, it was a statement about design, culture, and the spirit of experimentation that defined the automotive world at a time when boundaries were still being tested and redefined. For those lucky enough to encounter one today, the OSI 20M TS Coupe is more than just a rare classic. It's a reminder of how collaboration can yield something truly exceptional. It challenges the conventional narrative of car design and production by proving that beauty and engineering can coexist in surprising ways. Whether admired on a sunny European boulevard or cherished in a quiet garage, this rare coupe continues to captivate with its combination of elegance, performance, and the elusive magic that comes from bridging two very different automotive worlds. Its story is one of vision, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of creating something that transcends the ordinary, making the OSI 20M TS a timeless and unforgettable chapter in automotive history.
The 1967 ISO Rivolta Varedo is one of those extraordinary automotive rarities that embodies both the bold ambition of the late 1960s and the tragic fragility of small, visionary manufacturers trying to redefine the car world. ISO Rivolta, a brand best known for marrying Italian elegance with the muscle of American V8 engines, had already carved out a respectable niche, producing grand tours that combined refined style with potent performance. Yet with the Varedo, they took a daring leap far beyond their comfort zone, diving headfirst into avant-garde design and engineering that anticipated the future of supercars long before it arrived. Designed as a one-off prototype, the Varedo is a fascinating fusion of artistry and technology, wrapped in a form so radical that it seemed to challenge the very notion of what a car should look like. Shaped like a sharp, aggressive wedge, the body was an unmistakable statement of intent: low, wide, and aggressively angular. Every line and edge was crafted to slice through the air and turn heads, with an almost alien appearance that made it look like something from a science fiction film rather than a road-going machine of its time. The choice to equip the Varedo with scissor doors, opening upwards instead of outwards, was not just a styling flourish, but a bold architectural statement that preceded Lamborghini's famous Countach by several years. It created a dramatic sense of theater, transforming the act of entering and exiting the car into a spectacle in itself, emphasizing the vehicle's futuristic ethos. Under the hood, the Varedo carried a potent mid-mounted Ford V8, a testament to ISO's pragmatic approach to combining exotic design with reliable and powerful American engines. The choice of a mid-engine layout was revolutionary for the time in the Grand Touring world, as it promised superior handling dynamics and balance, laying the groundwork for the supercar revolution that would soon take off in the 1970s. ISO was clearly looking beyond simply producing a beautiful GT. The Varedo was meant to be a performance icon, blending power, precision, and cutting-edge design into a single cohesive vision. However, the story of the Varedo is steeped in the harsh realities that often confront small car manufacturers with big dreams. Despite the prototype's promise and undeniable charisma, ISO was struggling financially during the late 1960s, caught between the pressures of increasing competition, rising production costs, and an automotive industry in flux. The Varedo project, with its high costs and radical departure from ISO's usual formula, was simply too ambitious and expensive to push forward into production. Instead of becoming the groundbreaking car it was destined to be, the Varedo was quietly shelved, tucked away into the shadows of automotive history, where it remained a hidden jewel, largely unknown even to many enthusiasts. The prototype survived as a symbol of what might have been, a poignant reminder of how financial hardship and industry dynamics can stifle innovation and ambition. The Varedo didn't just disappear, it became a ghostly artifact, a missing link between the sleek, elegant Grand Tours of the 1960s and the wild, edgy supercars that defined the 1970s and 80s. Its influence, subtle but undeniable, can be traced through the evolution of wedge-shaped mid-engine exotic cars that dominated supercar design for decades, making the Varedo a quiet pioneer that went unrecognized in its own time. Today, when the ISO Rivolta Varedo is brought out from its vaults for rare public display or private collection viewing, it commands awe and admiration for its visionary styling and mechanical bravado. The car is not just a museum piece, it is a testament to a brief moment in history when designers and engineers dared to dream of the future, unbound by the conventions of their era. It stands as a tribute to creative courage, a glimpse into an alternate automotive timeline where ISO might have become a defining force in supercar history. For modern enthusiasts, the Varedo is more than just an obscure prototype. It's a story about the razor's edge between visionary genius and harsh economic reality. It evokes wonder about what could have been if ISO had the resources and market conditions to take this radical concept to production. The Varedo reminds us that the history of the automobile is filled with such tantalizing almosts, cars that could have changed the game but were stopped by forces beyond design and engineering. In the grand tapestry of automotive history, the 1967 ISO Rivolta Varedo shines as one of the most brilliant and tragic sparks of innovation, a singular masterpiece whose legacy continues to inspire those who seek the cutting edge of design and performance.
The 1969 Saab Sonett V4 is far more than just a rare oddball in the world of vintage sports cars. It's a vivid emblem of Saab's daring, aircraft-inspired approach to automobile design and engineering, during a period when the industry was dominated by muscle cars and traditional European sports cars. This quirky, lightweight coupe embodies the spirit of innovation, blending Scandinavian pragmatism with a bold willingness to stray from convention. And its story deserves to be told in all its detail. Saab, originally an aircraft manufacturer, always brought an unusual perspective to automotive design. The Sonett V4's genesis lies in the company's desire to create a small, nimble sports car that could deliver enjoyable performance without the size, weight, or complexity of contemporary sports cars from larger manufacturers. Its predecessor, the Sonett II, relied on a small, two-stroke, three-cylinder engine that, while unique, left much to be desired in terms of power and refinement. Saab realized it needed something more substantial and dependable for the next iteration, and so, in an almost counterintuitive move, they adopted a Ford-sourced 1.5-liter V4 engine. This V4 engine was an unusual choice, not typical of Saab's own engineering roots, and it added a fascinating layer to the car's identity. The V4 produced about 65 horsepower, which doesn't sound impressive today, but paired with the Sonnett's feather-light fiberglass body, weighing just around 1,900 pounds, it provided respectable acceleration and an engaging driving experience for its time. Front-wheel drive, another rarity in sports cars, gave the car exceptional grip in slippery conditions, a nod to Saab's Scandinavian heritage, where winter roads demand reliable traction. This configuration created a driving experience unlike anything offered by American muscle or traditional European rear-drive sports cars. Nimble, predictable, and just a bit quirky. The Sonett V4 styling is another chapter in its unique tale. Saab didn't aim for flamboyance. Instead, the car was designed to be aerodynamic, compact, and efficient. The fiberglass body was sleek and low, with subtle curves and an almost minimalist aesthetic that suggested speed without screaming it. Pop-up headlights, still relatively rare at the time, gave it a futuristic edge, and the whole design bore the unmistakable stamp of Saab's aircraft heritage, emphasizing function blended with a clean, utilitarian beauty. The cockpit was snug and driver-focused, with simple gauges and controls echoing the cockpit of a small airplane rather than a flashy European sports car. Every detail was chosen for purpose over flair. Despite these engineering achievements and distinctiveness, the Sonett V4 struggled to find a foothold outside of Sweden and Northern Europe. The car's limited power and unconventional layout were overshadowed in larger markets by roaring V8 muscle cars and sleek Italian exotics. Saab itself was a niche manufacturer with limited marketing resources and a conservative brand image that clashed with the Sonnett's bold spirit. Around 2,000 units were built between 1967 and 1970, making it incredibly rare today. Its rarity and unorthodox character have made it a cult classic, loved deeply by enthusiasts, but largely unknown by the broader public. Owner accounts of the Sonett V4 reveal a deep affection for its unique personality. Drivers praise its lightness and agility, describing it as surprisingly nimble and exceptionally fun in corners, qualities that belie its modest horsepower. Many appreciate its weird charm, the blend of a Ford engine in a Swedish car, the fiberglass construction, the front-wheel drive layout, all contributing to a driving experience unlike any other classic car. Its quirks, the tiny cockpit, the odd engine sound, the distinct handling, make it a conversation piece and a cherished oddity on the road. However, these same quirks also meant the car was often misunderstood or dismissed in its day, leading to its obscurity. Perhaps the most poignant element of the Saab Sonett V4 story is how it has been absolutely forgotten by everyone else, a hidden gem overshadowed by more glamorous or powerful competitors. Yet, for those who seek it out today, the Sonett offers something precious, a reminder that automotive history isn't just about speed records or flashy styling, but also about daring innovation, cultural uniqueness, and the joy of driving something truly original. The Sonett V4 is a testament to Saab's willingness to be different, a lightweight sports car that dared to define norms and still captivates the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts who value its blend of Swedish engineering, rarity, and timeless character. In the grand tapestry of automotive history, the 1969 Saab Sonett V4 may be a small thread, but it's one woven with innovation, charm, and the spirit of adventure. An exquisite reminder that sometimes the most fascinating cars are those that refuse to fit neatly into any box and instead chart their own distinct course.
The 1972 Maserati Indy America 4900 remains one of the most understated and overlooked gems in Maserati's storied history. A car that represents both the pinnacle and the twilight of the company's classic grand touring era. At a time when the automotive world was shifting rapidly towards either brutal, aggressive supercars or increasingly practical family sedans, the Indy America stood apart as a refined, luxurious expression of performance, elegance, and exclusivity, crafted for discerning drivers who demanded more than just raw speed. Originating in 1969, the Maserati Indy was created as a 2+2 Grand Tourer to fill a unique niche, a vehicle capable of comfortably transporting 4 adults over long distances, all while delivering the kind of exhilarating performance expected from an Italian exotic. What truly distinguished the late production America 4900 variant, introduced around 1972, was its massive 4.9-liter V8 engine, which was a step up from the earlier 4.2 and 4.7-liter engines in earlier Indy models. This power plant produced around 320 horsepower, enabling the Indy America to achieve a top speed exceeding 160 miles per hour, a remarkable feat for a car that prioritized grand touring comfort without compromising on speed. Despite this impressive performance, the Indy America was a study in contrast compared to other Maseratis of the era. While contemporaries like the Ghibli and Bora attracted attention with their aggressive, flamboyant styling and razor-sharp edges, the Indy America embraced a more restrained, elegant design philosophy. Styled by Vignale's Virginio Vairo, the car featured smooth, flowing lines that evoked a sense of timeless sophistication rather than fleeting trends. Its long hood, graceful roofline, and distinctive hatchback rear gave it a balanced, purposeful stance on the road, one that suggested both strength and poise. The subtle chrome accents and meticulously crafted details further reinforced its luxurious character. The interior was no less impressive. Crafted with hand-stitched leather, polished wooden dashboards, and carefully placed controls designed for driver comfort and convenience. Unlike many pure sports cars that sacrificed rear passenger space, the Indy America's 2+2 configuration allowed for real back seats, though best suited for shorter trips or smaller passengers. This practicality, combined with its high-performance engine, made it a rare breed, a genuine grand tourer that could comfortably cover thousands of miles in style and speed, without the punishing ride or cramped cabin typical of many contemporaries. Production numbers for the Indy America were always limited. The Indy itself was a low-volume model, with roughly 300 units produced over its entire lifespan. Of those, only a fraction were the rare America 4900 version with the larger 4.9-liter engine, making it one of the most exclusive Maserati Grand Tourers ever built. Unfortunately, its release coincided with a challenging time for Maserati. Financial difficulties, tightening emissions regulations, and changing market tastes all conspired to limit its commercial success and visibility. In contrast to the Ghibli, which boasted a more aggressive persona, and the Bora, with its futuristic wedge-shaped design, the Indy America quietly slipped through the cracks of automotive history, never gaining the fame it arguably deserved. Collectors today view the Indy America as a hidden treasure. Its rarity alone makes it highly sought after, but its qualities go far beyond scarcity. Those lucky enough to own one often praise its effortless blend of power and comfort, its ability to accelerate swiftly while remaining composed and refined on long drives, its beautifully crafted cabin, and its timeless, elegant styling that has aged far better than many flashier rivals. It's the kind of car that rewards patient appreciation rather than instant admiration. A classic Italian Grand Tourer for connoisseurs who value subtlety, craftsmanship, and performance in equal measure. Its obscurity also adds to its mystique. Unlike other Maseratis from the 60s and 70s that have become household names among enthusiasts, the Indy America remains a whispered secret, a car whose presence is often overshadowed by more famous Italian and British Grand Tours. Yet, for those who seek out rare automotive masterpieces, the Indy America is a poignant reminder of Maserati's dedication to crafting vehicles that balanced speed, comfort, and artistry, often in defiance of shifting trends and financial challenges. In sum, the 1972 Maserati Indy America 4900 represents a fascinating and rare chapter in automotive history. It is a car that could comfortably carry its passengers on long journeys at high speed, all while wrapped in one of the most elegant and understated Italian designs of its time. Its rarity, combined with its refined power and timeless beauty, make it a true connoisseur's car, an elusive masterpiece, waiting quietly in the shadows, ready to reward those with the eyes and passion to discover its remarkable story.
The 1967 Marcos Mantis XP is an extraordinary chapter in the annals of British motorsport history.
a story of ambition, innovation, and near-forgotten brilliance that encapsulates both the daring spirit and harsh realities faced by small boutique manufacturers trying to compete with automotive giants. Marcos, originally known for their unique wooden-framed sports cars that combined craftsmanship with performance, decided to push the boundaries of racing design with the Mantis XP, a prototype so futuristic it seemed ripped from a science fiction novel rather than born in the racetracks of 1960s England. At its core, the Mantis XP was powered by a mid-mounted British Racing Motors BRM V8, a compact yet ferociously powerful unit known for its Formula One pedigree and high revving capabilities. This choice alone marked the Mantis XP as an ambitious machine. BRM engines were not your everyday power plants, but instead they symbolized a cutting-edge racing philosophy focused on lightweight, high-performance engineering. With this mid-engine layout, the Mantis XP sought to capitalize on superior weight distribution and handling, an advantage few British sports prototypes could boast at the time. The car's chassis and suspension were designed to wring out every bit of potential from this engine, making it a fearsome contender on twisty circuits. What truly set the Mantis XP apart, however, was its radical aerodynamic design. The car's shape was unlike anything else on the road or track, featuring a sleek, low-slung body with an aggressively pointed nose and sharply sculpted lines that minimized drag. The gigantic rear wing was not just an aesthetic flourish, but a crucial functional element to generate downforce at high speeds, keeping the car glued to the tarmac through fast corners. Its overall profile looked more like a spaceship or a futuristic jet fighter than a race car, a clear statement from Marcos that they were not interested in playing by conventional design rules. The Mantis XP embodied a vision of the future of racing that few dared to imagine in the 1960s, when most competitors still relied on more traditional, boxy designs. The car made its brief appearance in endurance racing events, where it immediately caught the eye of spectators and rivals alike. Drivers who had the opportunity to pilot the Mantis XP reported an intense, exhilarating experience. The raw power of the BRM V8 combined with the razor-sharp handling made it feel like straddling the edge of control, a true racing machine built for speed and precision. Yet despite this promise, the Mantis XP's time on track was tragically short. Marcos, a small company with limited resources, struggled to sustain the project financially. The costs of developing, maintaining, and campaigning such an advanced prototype were enormous, especially when measured against the meager sponsorship and backing Marcos could muster. Without adequate funds, the car was withdrawn from competition and shelved before it could make a lasting impact. For decades, the Marcos Mantis XP slipped into automotive folklore, its existence known mainly through whispered tales among racing historians and enthusiasts. Its radical design and technological innovations were rarely seen in public, and the car's whereabouts remained a mystery for years. This disappearance only added to its mystique, making it a ghostly legend, an artifact of what might have been if Marcos had the financial muscle and infrastructure of larger manufacturers. Enthusiasts dreamed of rediscovering this lost marvel, imagining the day when the Mantis XP might finally be revealed and celebrated as one of the most visionary race cars of its era. Thankfully, that day came years later when the Marcos Mantis XP was rediscovered, preserved in remarkable condition, almost as if frozen in time. Seeing the car again is a surreal experience. It looks so far ahead of its time that it could have been designed in the 21st century. The aluminum and fiberglass body gleams, the giant wings still imposing, and the cockpit interior, though stripped for racing, reflects an obsessive attention to detail. This rediscovery turned the Mantis XP from a forgotten prototype into a celebrated icon of automotive daring, inspiring admiration from collectors, designers, and motorsport fans worldwide. The legacy of the Marcos Mantis XP is a poignant blend of triumph and tragedy. On the one hand, it stands as a testament to the audacity of a small British company willing to innovate fearlessly, to push engineering and design limits, and to dream of a new kind of race car that could challenge the best in the world. On the other hand, it symbolizes the brutal financial and regulatory realities that crush many such dreams, a reminder that genius alone is never enough in the ruthless world of motorsport. Today, the Mantis XP serves as a shining, haunting symbol of lost potential, a racing star that burned brightly but briefly before fading away, leaving behind only whispers, photographs, and the silhouette of a car that looked like it came from another world entirely. Owners, historians, and fans who have since encountered the Mantis XP often express a mix of awe and melancholy. Some call it a wild sci-fi beast that never got its day. Others say it's the ghost of British racing innovation, while many simply marvel at its design, calling it the car that dared to rewrite the rules of speed and style. The Marcos Mantis XP's story reminds us that the history of motorsport is not just about the champions and legends, but also about the dreamers, the risk-takers, and the forgotten innovators whose work continues to inspire and intrigue generations long after the engines have fallen silent.